36 people crushed to death in 30 seconds. A mother murdered and forced to sit with her children on Christmas morning. A family execution at a highway rest stop. A son who killed his mother because she asked him to move boxes. These horrifying events all happened on New Year's Eve. These 4 stories are real tragedies documented by police, witnesses, and news reports. They happened on New Year's Eve, when people should have been celebrating. If disturbing content affects you, this is your warning. Let's begin.
My name is Zuo Zhijian, and I work in media in Shanghai. What happened to me and hundreds of thousands of others on New Year's Eve 2014 at the Bund still haunts me. I survived, but 36 people didn't. I'm sharing this story because people need to understand how quickly celebration can turn into tragedy. The Bund is Shanghai's most famous waterfront area. It's where old colonial buildings line the Hongpu River, and it's been the traditional gathering place for New Year's Eve celebrations for decades. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people come to watch fireworks, enjoy light shows, and count down to the new year together. December 31st, 2014 started like any normal New Year's Eve. I lived nearby, so I walked down to Chen Yi Square on the Bund with friends around 10 p.m. The square was already getting crowded, but that was normal. We expected maybe 300,000 people to show up based on previous years. What we didn't know was that city officials had made some changes this year. They'd moved the official light show to a different, more enclosed area because they were worried about overcrowding. They'd had problems the year before when nearly 300,000 people showed up and caused traffic chaos, so they tried to control it better by relocating the main event. But here's the problem. They canceled the original light show, but didn't really communicate that effectively to everyone. So people still came to the Bund expecting celebrations. And because there was no official event with proper crowd control, security, and barriers, people just gathered organically in massive numbers.
By 11 p.m., the square was packed. I mean, absolutely packed, shoulder to shoulder, unable to move freely. We were all pressed together, but everyone was in good spirits. People were laughing, taking photos, excited for midnight. There's a raised viewing platform at the Bund that overlooks the river. It's accessible by a wide staircase. Throughout the evening, people kept trying to get up to that platform for a better view. At the same time, other people who'd already been up there were trying to come back down. 2 streams of people moving in opposite directions on the same staircase. Around 11:30 p.m., things started feeling wrong. The crowd was getting tighter and tighter. I was standing with my friends, and I could feel the pressure of bodies pushing from all sides. It wasn't aggressive pushing, just the natural result of too many people in too small a space. Then, at 11:35 p.m., exactly 25 minutes before midnight, everything went wrong. I heard screaming from near the staircase. People started surging in different directions. Some were trying to get away from something, others were trying to see what was happening. The crowd became like a wave, pushing and pulling in chaotic patterns. Suddenly, I couldn't move my legs. The crush of bodies around me was so tight that my feet were literally trapped. I felt someone behind me grabbing my hair, pulling and struggling. Their breathing was heavy and desperate. In front of me, a young woman grabbed onto me. Her face was terrified. She was crying and screaming, help me, please, I can't make it anymore." I wanted to help her, but I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. Then I looked down and saw another girl on the ground, completely motionless. People were stepping on her, not because they wanted to hurt her, but because they physically couldn't stop. The crowd was so dense that you moved where the crowd moved you. You had no control. The sounds are what I'll never forget. All around me, girls were crying and shouting for help with their last bit of strength. People were fighting each other, throwing curses, panicking. Everyone was terrified, and no one knew what to do.
The actual stampede lasted maybe 30 seconds, but in those 30 seconds, people fell on the staircase. When one person fell, they knocked down the person below them, who knocked down the next person, and it became a domino effect. People were collapsing into each other, piling up on those stairs. Some witnesses said it started when someone threw coupons from a third-floor bar window. The coupons looked like US dollar bills, and people thought it was real money, so they rushed to grab it. But police later said that wasn't what caused it. Video footage showed the coupons were thrown after the stampede had already started. The real cause was simpler and more terrifying. Too many people in too small a space with inadequate crowd control. I managed to stay on my feet. I don't know how, maybe because I'm tall, maybe luck, but all around me people were going down, and once you went down in that crowd, there was almost no chance of getting back up. Another witness, a man named Tian Ye, lived nearby and came down to enjoy the festivities. He ended up about 30 meters from where the crush happened. When he saw people collapsing and losing consciousness, he and other young men rushed in to help. They did CPR on victims. They carried people to ambulances and police cars. The stampede itself was over in 30 seconds, but it took about 10 minutes to carry everyone out. People were stuck in that stairwell, packed so tightly there was no clear entrance or exit. Everyone panicked, which made it worse.
By the time emergency responders could reach all the victims, 36 people were dead. Most of them were crushed to death. They couldn't breathe because of the pressure of bodies pressing against their chests. Another 49 people were injured, 13 of them seriously. Most of the dead were young women and students. The youngest victim was only 12 years old. Many were teenagers or in their early 20s, just out to celebrate with friends. They had their whole lives ahead of them. The aftermath was chaos. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Family members rushed to hospitals desperately seeking information about their loved ones. Police had to set up barricades because relatives were so frantic to find out if their children, siblings, or friends were alive. I saw video later of the hospital waiting rooms, people sobbing, completely broken. One woman told state TV that relatives had been waiting for hours with no information. At one hospital, families faced off with security guards, demanding to be let in to find their loved ones. Back at the Bund, the scene was eerily quiet. By dawn, there was barely any evidence that anything had happened. City workers had cleaned everything up. The only sign was the flowers that people started laying at the feet of Chen Yi's statue in the square. People came to pray, to mourn, to try to understand how this could happen. President Xi Jinping ordered an immediate investigation. How could 36 people die at a New Year's celebration in China's most modern, sophisticated city? Police admitted they had massively underestimated the crowd size. They had deployed only 500 officers, which was nowhere near enough for 300,000 people. The investigation revealed a lot of failures. Officials had canceled the main light show due to safety concerns, but hadn't put proper alternative crowd control measures in place. They'd essentially created a situation where hundreds of thousands of people gathered in an area with inadequate security, no organized event structure, and no clear emergency protocols.
11 public officials were eventually punished. 4 were fired outright, including the district party chief, his deputy, the district security chief, and the deputy police chief. 7 others received disciplinary action. The investigation found that these officials had paralyzed thinking and a serious lack of understanding of public security risks. Each family of the deceased received 800,000 yuan, about $128,800 in compensation from the city. But no amount of money brings back a child, a sibling, a friend. The incident became international news. Media called it China's worst disaster since an apartment fire killed 58 people in 2010. Articles compared it to other deadly stampedes around the world, like the 2004 Beijing stampede that killed 37 people. Or the many stampedes that happen at religious gatherings in India and Saudi Arabia. As a result of what happened, Shanghai canceled all New Year's celebrations the following year. Similar events across China were also canceled. The government realized they couldn't keep allowing massive, poorly controlled gatherings of people. I still live in Shanghai. I still pass by the Bund regularly, but I've never gone back for New Year's Eve. I can't. Every time I see that staircase, I remember the feeling of not being able to move my legs. I remember that girl grabbing me, begging for help. I remember the girl on the ground being trampled. The thing that haunts me most is how fast it happened. We went from celebration to tragedy in literally 30 seconds. One moment, everyone was happy and excited. The next, people were dying. There was no warning, no time to prepare, no chance to prevent it once it started. Crowd crushes are different from other disasters. It's not like a fire where you see smoke and have time to react. It's not like an earthquake where you feel shaking and can take cover. A crowd crush happens when you're already trapped. By the time you realize what's happening, you're already in danger, and there's nothing you can do.
I'm a retired detective from the Baltimore Police Department. I worked homicide for over 20 years, and I've seen terrible things. But what William Wallace did to his wife Giselle Preston on Christmas Eve 2011 ranks among the most disturbing cases I ever investigated. The depravity, the cruelty to the children, the absolute callousness of it all still makes me sick. Giselle Preston was only 26 years old. She was studying to become a domestic violence counselor. Think about that irony for a second. She wanted to help other women escape abusive relationships, and she herself became a victim of domestic violence in the worst possible way. Giselle was married to William Wallace, who was 39 years old. They had young children together. On Christmas Eve 2011, they went to a neighbor's party. It should have been a nice holiday evening, spending time with friends and neighbors, celebrating Christmas. But during the party, Giselle and William got into an argument. The details of what they argued about aren't entirely clear, but according to prosecutors, William became enraged. When they got home from the party, the argument continued, and that's when William Wallace beat his wife to death. He beat her so severely that she died from the injuries. His own wife, the mother of his children, beaten to death on Christmas Eve. The violence of it, the rage it must have taken, is almost incomprehensible. But what he did next is what makes this case truly horrifying. What he did to his children is something I still can't understand, even after all these years dealing with the worst of humanity. William did not call 911. He did not tell anyone what happened. He did not let the children know their mother was dead. Instead, he propped Giselle's corpse on the couch. He positioned her body so she looked like she was sitting there. He put sunglasses on her face to hide her dead eyes. And then, on Christmas morning, he made the children come downstairs and open their presents in front of their mother's dead body. The children thought their mother was alive. They thought she was just wearing sunglasses and sitting quietly on the couch. They were opening their Christmas presents, excited about their new toys, while their mother's corpse sat there decomposing. William told the children, "Mommy ruined Christmas. She got drunk and ruined Christmas." He forced those kids to celebrate Christmas with their dead mother sitting right there, to make them think it was her fault, to normalize this horrific scene, to make them open presents and pretend everything was fine while their murdered mother was propped up like a piece of furniture. I cannot imagine the psychological damage this caused those children. The trauma of losing their mother is bad enough, but to spend Christmas morning with her corpse, to be told she ruined Christmas when their father had just murdered her, those kids will carry that for the rest of their lives. Eventually, someone discovered what had happened and called police. When we arrived at the scene and saw what Wallace had done, even veteran detectives were shaken.
We'd seen murders before, we'd seen domestic violence cases, but the staging of the body, the involvement of the children, the Christmas morning element, it all combined into something uniquely horrible.
William Wallace was arrested and charged with murder. During the investigation and trial, details about their relationship emerged. There had been previous instances of violence. Giselle had been trying to get help, which is why she was studying to become a domestic violence counselor. She understood what she was experiencing, but like so many victims, she struggled to leave. The prosecution laid out the timeline of events, the argument at the party, the beating at home, the murder, and then the calculated decision to prop her body on the couch and traumatize their children by making them celebrate Christmas with her corpse. Wallace was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. He'll die there, which is what he deserves. But that doesn't undo what he did. It doesn't bring back Giselle. It doesn't erase the trauma he inflicted on those children. Giselle Preston was studying to help other women escape abusive relationships. She wanted to make the world safer for domestic violence victims. Instead, she became another statistic, another woman killed by her intimate partner, another life cut short by someone who was supposed to love and protect her. The case got some media attention because of how disturbing it was. The detail about the children opening presents with their mother's corpse made headlines. But then, like most cases, it faded from public consciousness. People moved on, but those children never will. They'll carry the memory of that Christmas morning forever. I retired a few years after this case. Working homicide takes a toll, and cases like Giselle's stay with you. I still think about those kids sometimes. I hope they got therapy. I hope they were able to heal at least some of the damage their father caused. I hope they found family or guardians who could give them love and safety.
But I know the reality. That kind of trauma doesn't just go away. Those children will struggle their entire lives with what they witnessed. Every Christmas will be a reminder. Every holiday will bring back those memories of their mother sitting dead on the couch while they opened toys. William Wallace took more than Giselle's life. He destroyed his children's innocence, their sense of safety, their ability to trust. He turned Christmas, which should be the happiest day of a child's year, into their worst nightmare.
I was a state trooper in upstate New York for 35 years. I responded to a lot of crime scenes over those decades, but the one that sticks with me most happened on New Year's Eve, 1969. It's known as the Yablonsky murders, and it's a case that exposed corruption at the highest levels of organized labor while leaving a family dead at a highway rest stop. Joseph Yablonsky was 59 years old in 1969. He was a labor leader working for the United Miner Workers Union, which represented coal miners across the country. These were working-class men doing dangerous jobs deep underground, and the union was supposed to protect their interests, fight for better wages and safer conditions. Yablonsky believed in that mission. He'd been a union member and official for years, working his way up through the ranks. But by the late 1960s, he'd become increasingly concerned about corruption in the union's leadership, specifically with the union president, Tony Boyle. Boyle had been president of the United Miner Workers Union for several years, and Yablonsky believed he wasn't serving the miners' interests. He believed Boyle was more interested in maintaining his own power and comfortable lifestyle than fighting for the working men who paid union dues. So in 1969, Yablonsky decided to challenge Boyle for the presidency. He ran against him in the union election, campaigning on reform and anti-corruption. It was a bruising campaign. Boyle used every advantage of incumbency to attack Yablonsky and maintain power. Boyle won the election, but Yablonsky immediately accused him of winning through fraud. He pushed for an investigation into voting irregularities. He wasn't going to just accept defeat and fade away. He was going to keep fighting for reform. Tony Boyle decided to eliminate the problem permanently. Using union funds, embezzled money that should have been used to help miners, Boyle hired 3 gunmen to kill Yablonsky. This wasn't a crime of passion or a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was a calculated assassination, planned and paid for by the president of a major American labor union.
The hit was scheduled for New Year's Eve, 1969. Joseph Yablonsky lived with his wife Margaret and their daughter Charlotte in Washington County, Pennsylvania. It was a small home, nothing fancy, the kind of place a working-class family would live. 3 gunmen drove to the Yablonsky home on New Year's Eve. They broke in. They found Joseph, Margaret, and Charlotte, and they executed all 3 of them. They didn't just kill Joseph, they killed his wife and daughter too. There was no reason to kill them except incompetence and cruelty. The hitmen could have killed only their target, but instead they murdered an entire family. The 3 Yablonskys were found dead in their home days later. They'd been shot execution style. It was clear this wasn't a robbery or home invasion gone wrong. This was an assassination. But here's where it connects to New Year's Eve in a different way and why I'm telling this story. The Egan family murders. On that same New Year's Eve in 1969, another family was driving on Interstate 81 in upstate New York, heading to visit relatives. Peter Egan, his wife Barbara Ann, and their son Gerald stopped at a rest stop near the highway. It was late, dark, and they were probably tired from driving. 3 men approached the Egans at that rest stop. The Egans were shot execution style, killed instantly. Their bodies were found at the rest stop by a couple who stopped there later that night. The Egans were known to local police. They were suspected in a string of burglaries and were under FBI investigation for grand theft auto. Police immediately theorized that the murders were connected to their criminal activities. Maybe they'd crossed the wrong people. Maybe they were going to turn state witness and testify against someone more powerful.
But the timing was chilling. New Year's Eve, 1969. 2 family execution-style murders, just a few hundred miles apart, both involving people connected to criminal activity or controversial situations. Both professional hits, carried out with precision. The Egan case remained unsolved for years. Police had theories, but no solid evidence. The killers left little forensic evidence behind. It was a gangland-style hit, clean and professional. But back to Yablonsky. The murder of Joseph Yablonsky, his wife Margaret, and daughter Charlotte never made it to 1970. Peter, Barbara Ann, and Gerald Egan never made it to their destination. They were all executed on what should have been a night of celebration. New Year's Eve 1969 was supposed to be a celebration. People were getting ready to welcome 1970, a new decade. There were parties across the country. Dick Clark was hosting his countdown special. People were making resolutions and looking forward to the future. But for 2 families, there was no future. Joseph Yablonsky, his wife Margaret, and daughter Charlotte never made it to 1970. Peter, Barbara Ann, and Gerald Egan never made it to their destination. They were all executed on what should have been a night of celebration. The Yablonsky case became famous. A TV movie was made about it in the 1980s with Wilford Brimley playing Tony Boyle. Books were written about the corruption in the United Mine Workers Union. The murders became a cautionary tale about what happens when power corrupts and when people are willing to kill to maintain that power. But the victims themselves are sometimes forgotten in all the discussion of union politics and organized crime. Joseph Yablonsky was a man who stood up for what he believed in and was murdered for it. His wife and daughter were innocent casualties, killed simply because they were home when the hitmen arrived. The Egan family remains more mysterious. Were they criminals who got what was coming to them? Were they about to testify against someone dangerous? We may never know for sure, but they were still human beings, shot dead at a highway rest stop while traveling on New Year's Eve. I was a young trooper when the Egan murders happened. I wasn't the first responder, but I heard about it immediately. The whole department was buzzing. Execution-style murder at a rest stop on New Year's Eve. It was the kind of case that makes you realize this job isn't just traffic stops and petty theft. Sometimes evil is real and organized and willing to kill entire families. That's what happened on New Year's Eve, 1969. 2 families executed in 2 different locations. One murder led to the exposure of massive union corruption and the conviction of a labor leader. The other remains officially unsolved, a reminder that not all crimes get solved. Not all killers get caught.
This story is going to sound almost ridiculous when I start telling it, but it ends in tragedy, and it shows how something small can escalate into murder. I'm basing this on police reports from Miami-Dade County, Florida on New Year's Eve 2014. Christian Gomez was 23 years old. He lived with his mother, Maria Suarez Casan, who was 48. By all accounts, they had a normal relationship. Not perfect, but normal. The kind of relationship where mothers nag their adult children about chores and responsibilities, and the children get annoyed but generally comply. In the days leading up to New Year's Eve 2014, Maria had been asking Christian to move some boxes to the attic. These weren't heavy boxes or an unreasonable request, just regular household stuff that needed to be stored. She asked him once, he said he'd do it later. She asked him again, he said he'd get to it. This went on for several days. According to what Christian later told police, his mother had been nagging him about the boxes for days. She kept bringing it up, kept reminding him, kept asking when he was going to take care of it. On New Year's Eve, the family was together, probably getting ready to celebrate that night. Maria brought up the boxes again. Christian had still not moved them. And something in Christian Gomez snapped. He flew into a rage, over boxes, over his mother asking him repeatedly to do a simple household chore. He became so angry that he attacked his mother.
The details of exactly what happened are brutal. Christian beat his mother so severely that he killed her. Maria Suarez Casagne, 48 years old, mother, was murdered by her own son in their home on New Year's Eve because she asked him to move boxes to the attic. When police arrived and arrested Christian, he admitted what he'd done. He told them about the boxes, about his mother nagging him, about how he'd gotten so angry that he'd killed her. During the investigation and subsequent court proceedings, Christian tried to portray his mother as overbearing and difficult. He talked about how she wouldn't stop nagging him, how she kept bringing up the boxes, how frustrated he felt. But here's the thing. What his mother did wasn't abuse. It wasn't unreasonable. It was just normal parent behavior. She asked her adult son to help out around the house by moving some boxes. She reminded him when he didn't do it. That's not nagging in any pathological sense. That's just being a mother living with an adult child who wasn't pulling his weight. Christian Gomez murdered his mother over something so trivial that it's almost incomprehensible. This wasn't a lifetime of abuse that culminated in a violent response. This wasn't self-defense. This wasn't even a serious argument about money or relationships or anything significant. It was boxes. Boxes that needed to be moved to the attic. The case highlights something disturbing about family violence. Sometimes there's no good explanation. Sometimes people kill their relatives over things that seem absurdly minor to outsiders. A request to help with chores, a comment about cleaning up, a reminder about responsibilities.
These small conflicts happen in every household. Parents ask their kids to help out. Adult children sometimes resent being asked. There are moments of frustration, eye-rolling, maybe some arguing. But in healthy relationships, it never escalates beyond minor annoyance. In Christian Gomez's mind, his mother's repeated requests about the boxes became something worth killing over. Either he had severe anger management issues that had gone unaddressed, or there was some underlying mental health crisis, or he was just a person with so little impulse control that frustration turned immediately to deadly violence. Maria Suarez Casagne spent New Year's Eve 2014 dead, murdered by her own son because she wanted help with household tasks. She never got to see 2015. She never got to celebrate with the rest of her family. Her last hours were spent asking her son for help, not knowing that request would cost her her life. Christian was arrested, charged with murder, and convicted. He's serving a long prison sentence. But that doesn't bring back his mother. It doesn't undo the tragedy of a woman killed over something so meaningless. The story serves as a disturbing reminder that family violence can erupt over anything. The triggers don't have to make sense to us. A person willing to commit violence against a family member doesn't need a rational reason. They just need an excuse, however flimsy. For Maria's other family members, New Year's Eve will forever be the night Christian murdered their mother, their sister, their aunt. A holiday that should be about fresh starts and new beginnings is now marked by tragedy and loss. And it all started with boxes that needed to be moved to the attic.
These 4 true stories happened on New Year's Eve, when people should have been celebrating. The Shanghai Stampede killed 36 in 30 seconds. Giselle Preston was murdered and her children traumatized. The Yablonsky and Egan families were executed. A mother was killed over moving boxes. If these real tragedies disturbed you, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell for more true horror and crime stories. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts on these cases. Check out my other videos for more documented horror. Stay safe this New Year's Eve, and remember that tragedy can happen anywhere, anytime. Thanks for watching.